He has a gentle, ringing, and very recognizable voice. He is a talented singer and an inimitable dancer. He has 13 Grammy Awards and is known worldwide as the King of Pop. However, we prefer to call him Michael. You are on the Biographer channel. Today, we will tell you about the life's journey of the great artist. At what age did Michael Jackson start singing? What happened to his skin? And what is the reason for his early death? Sit back, and we want to be starting something. Michael Joseph Jackson was born in Gary, Indiana on August 29, 1958. He was the 8th of 10 children in a working-class African-American Jackson family who lived in a 2-bedroom house on Jackson Street. The small town of Gary was 25 miles from downtown Chicago, where Joseph Walter, Joe Jackson, settled at 18. There, he met his future wife, Catherine Esther Jackson. Joe's great-grandfather, July Jack Gale, was a U.S. Army Scout and Native American medicine man, according to family lore. After they got married, Joe and Catherine moved into a 2-bedroom house on the corner of Jackson Street and 23rd Avenue. Joe, an aspiring boxer and musician who played guitar in a local rhythm and blues band, the Falcons, realized that supporting his family should be his priority. To take care of his growing family, the man took a job as a welder and crane operator at the U.S. Steel. Sometimes he worked 3 jobs at the same time. Catherine was a housewife and a devout Jehovah's Witness. Being a singer and a pianist who aspired to be a country western performer while working part-time at Sears, she encouraged her children's musical talents. Michael grew up in a house with 3 sisters, Rebby, Latoya, Janet, and 5 brothers, Jackie, Tito, Jermaine, Marlon, and Randy. A 6th brother, Marlon's twin Brandon, died shortly after birth. Michael has been involved with music since childhood. We were a family that sang all the time. We would take the furniture out of the living room and dance. We would have a songwriting competition while we washed the dishes, while we were cleaning. Music was our destiny. His father, Joe, had a guitar which he never allowed anyone to touch. One day, Michael's brother Tito broke that rule and accidentally broke a string. He hid from his father for a long time, fearing punishment. But when he found out what had happened, he demanded Tito show him what he could do with it. When Tito played, Joe came up with the idea of creating a family group along with the kids. In 1964, Michael joined the Jackson brothers as a backing musician, playing congas and tambourine. A group was formed by his father, and it already included Jackie, Tito, Jermaine, and Marlon. Michael was only 6. From an early age, Michael learned that his childhood was different from that of other children. In the memoir, You Are Not Alone, Michael Through a Brother's Eyes, his brother Jermaine recalled how they looked out the window at the streets decorated for Christmas. We observed all this from inside a house with no tree, no lights, no nothing. Our tiny house was the only one without decorations. We felt it was the only one in Gary, Indiana, but Mother assured us that no, there were other homes and other Jehovah's Witnesses who did not celebrate Christmas. But that knowledge did nothing to clear our confusion. We could see something that made us feel good, yet we were told it wasn't good for us. The father was strict and even cruel towards the boy. Michael recalled how his father repeatedly told him he had a fat nose and physically and emotionally abused him during rehearsals. Joe often sat in a chair with a belt in his hand, ready to punish him and his siblings when they rehearsed. Joe later stated that he did not beat but regularly spanked Michael. His mother, Catherine, said that while spanking came to be considered abuse, it was the most common way to discipline children during Michael's growing up years. Jackie, Tito, Jermaine, and Marlon denied that their father abused them. They said that the spanking, which was harder on Michael because he was the youngest, kept them disciplined and out of trouble. Remembering his youth, Michael said that it was lonely and isolated. If any of his children crossed the line, Joe quickly punished them. Michael once told Oprah Winfrey that he was afraid of his father so much that he felt sick when he saw him. In a 2003 TV interview, he said, "I just remember hearing my mother scream, 'Joe, you're gonna kill him! You're gonna kill him! Stop it!'" Many years later at the Grammy ceremony, the world-famous Michael Jackson would say, "My childhood was taken away from me. There was no Christmas, there were no birthdays. It was not a normal childhood, nor the normal pleasures of childhood. Those were exchanged for hard work, struggle, and pain, and eventually material and professional success. but at an awful price. I cannot recreate that part of my life, nor would I change any part of my life." Later, Michael began to share lead vocals with Jermaine. The group's name was changed to the Jackson 5. In 1965, the group won a talent show. Michael danced to Robert Parker's 1965 song Barefootin' and sang The Temptations' My Girl. It was the first success in the career of the future star, and Joe, the father, quickly became Joe, the manager. The father demanded the children call him Joseph. A strict taskmaster, Joe made his sons go through long and grueling rehearsals to make their songs and performances perfect. It was that joint childhood that Michael would hate for the rest of his life. "You call me Joseph," Michael's sister Janet recalled her father saying after she once referred to him as Dad. "I'm Joseph to you." The Jackson 5 toured the Midwest from 1966 to 1968. They often played local auditoriums, school dances, as well as several black clubs known as the Chitlin Circuit as the opening act for artists such as Sam and Dave, the OJs, Gladys Knight, and Etta James. The Jackson 5 also performed in clubs and cocktail bars. "I grew up on stage. I grew up in nightclubs. When I was 7, 8 years old, I was in nightclubs. I saw striptease girls take off all their clothes. I saw fights break out. I saw people throw up on each other. I saw adults act like pigs." They won a weekly amateur night concert at the Apollo Theater in Harlem while touring the East Coast in August of 1967. Joe decided to turn the band professional. After a couple of years, he would sign a contract with a label with artists such as Stevie Wonder, The Supremes, and Smokey Robinson. The Jackson 5 recorded several songs for Gary's Steeltown Records label. They released their first single, Big Boy, in 1968. Then Bobby Taylor of Bobby Taylor and the Vancouvers brought the Jackson 5 to Motown. They performed for Taylor at Chicago's Regal Theater later that year. Taylor produced some of their early recordings, including a version of Who's Lovin' You. The Jackson family moved to Los Angeles after signing the contract with Motown. The following year, Motown executives decided that Diana Ross should introduce the Jackson 5 to the public by shipping a fresh Motown product from her production line. The Jackson 5 first appeared on television in 1969 at the Miss Black America contest, performing a cover of It's Your Thing. Rolling Stone would later single out young Michael as a prodigy with overwhelming musical gifts who quickly emerged as the main draw and lead singer. I Want You Back became the first Jackson 5 song to hit #1 on the US Billboard Hot 100 the following January. The band's first album, Diana Ross Presents the Jackson 5, hit the charts in December of 1969. 3 more singles topped the chart later: ABC, The Love You Save, and I'll Be There. After the Jackson 5 taking off in May of 1971, the Jackson family moved into a large house in Havenhurst, a 2-acre estate in Encino, California. For several years, they maintained a busy touring and recording schedule under the supervision of Gordy and his Motown staff. The group became so popular that they even had a cartoon show. It ran from 1971 to 1972. At the same time, Michael began his solo musical career when he was 13. When he was 14, he released the album Ben, which featured the eponymous ballad about a rat, Jackson's first solo #1 single. Jackson turned from child performer to teen idol. Between 1972 and 1975, he released 4 solo studio albums with Motown: Gotta Be There, Ben, Music and Me, and Forever Michael. The title tracks from the first 2 solo albums, Gotta Be There and Ben, sold well as singles, as did the cover of Bobby Day's Rockin' Robin. Michael had a long connection with the Jackson 5. Over time, they were described as a cutting-edge example of black crossover artists. The group sold over 100 million records worldwide, and Jackson's performance of their top 5 single, Dancing Machine, on the TV show Soul Train popularized the robot dance. Despite the group's great success, there were problems behind the scenes. tensions mounting over the management of the children's careers. The Jacksons wanted more creative control over their material. The band officially ended their contract with Motown in 1976. However, Jermaine remained with the label to continue his solo career. The Jackson 5 signed the contract with Epic Records and changed the name to the Jacksons. Then, their younger brother Randy joined the group. The Jacksons continued to tour worldwide and released 6 albums between 1976 and 1984. Michael, being the band's writer at the time, wrote songs such as Shake Your Body, Down to the Ground, This Place Hotel, and Can You Feel It? Then in 1977, an adult Michael Jackson moved to New York to star in The Wiz, a musical film directed by Sidney Lumet. It was easy and enjoyable for Jackson to work on the film, as he memorized the dance moves well. The complex choreography did not intimidate him. But as it turned out, his talent became a problem. It was said that during filming, Diana Ross, who played Dorothy, took Jackson aside and explained that he put her in a bad light because he learned dance chords too quickly. After that, Jackson pretended to be a worse dancer than he was, although he remained on good terms with Ross. The film, by the way, was a failure at the box office, although it received 4 Oscar nominations. But it's not what is important. Quincy Jones was responsible for arranging the music in it, and their acquaintance was a key event for Michael. It was he who would later produce the musician's 3 solo albums. Michael's 5th solo album, Off the Wall, was released in 1979. The overwhelmingly positive response to the album helped the Jacksons band as well. Triumph was released a little later. It sold over 1 million copies, and the brothers went on a big tour supporting the record. At the same time, Michael continued to look for new ways of self-development. The release became Michael's first big success as a solo artist. Meanwhile, Michael got into an unpleasant situation that changed him forever after the release of Off the Wall. During a dance program, he fell and broke his nose. The rhinoplasty led to breathing problems that would later affect his career. Probably it was his first plastic surgery. He consulted Stephen Hoffman, who made Jackson's later surgeries. And over time, the familiar appearance of the star will begin to change. In numerous interviews, Michael denied that he had done anything other than a nose surgery. In a 2002 interview with ABC News, Michael stated, "I've had no plastic surgery on my face, just my nose. It helped me breathe better so I can hit higher notes." Michael Jackson received 3 American Music Awards for his solo work in 1980. He also won a Grammy Award for Best Male R&B Vocal Performance for 1979 with Don't Stop Till You Get Enough. Jackson felt that Off the Wall should have an impact and was determined to exceed expectations with his next release. It was amazing how the underwhelming Music and Me and Forever Michael led the guy to the phenomenal Off the Wall. The infectious mix of pop and funk came like thunder into the dance world. The album included the Grammy Award-winning single Don't Stop Till You Get Enough, as well as hits such as Rock With You and She's Out of My Life. In that regard, since the early 80s, the artist has received the highest royalty rate in the music industry. He received 37% of the wholesale profits of albums, but it was not yet the top of Michael's career. The album Thriller was released in 1982. It immediately became the best-selling album in history with 7 top 10 hits. It stayed on the charts for 80 weeks, 37 of which it was in first place. Around 70 million copies have been sold worldwide. In addition to unprecedented commercial success, Thriller received 12 nominations at the 26th Grammy Awards and won 8, setting a record. Jackson's success demonstrated the varied nature of his work. For his songwriting talents, he received a Grammy Award for Best Rhythm and Blues Song for Billie Jean. He was also honored for the singles Thriller as Best Male Pop Vocal Performance and Beat It as Best Male Rock Vocal Performance. Michael shared the Album of the Year award with co-producer Quincy Jones. There was Jackson's joint track with Paul McCartney, The Girl Is Mine, which almost reached the top of the pop charts. Here is how Paul McCartney recalled the beginning of the collaboration.
Michael originally rang me, said, "Do you want to make some hits?" And I said, "Yeah, sure I do, you know." So he came over and we agreed to meet here.
Michael originally fancied writing some stuff with me, and I thought it was a good idea. So he came over here to England, and we just hung out for a little while and got to know each other a bit, and ended up writing 2 songs.
The lead and self-titled single from the album Thriller received an elaborate music video. John Landis directed the horror-tinged video, which featured complex dance scenes, special effects, and a voiceover by actor Vincent Price. The clip was a huge success, only increasing the sales of an already sold record. After that, Jackson's metamorphosis became much more than just an artistic statement. Jackson went from human to werewolf to human to zombie and back to human in the mega-hit video. It was as if he was using that story to anticipate the coming drama of real-life change. Meanwhile, in 1983, Michael went on his last tour with the brothers, supporting their album Victory. One of the biggest hits on the record was Jackson's duet with Mick Jagger on State of Shock. Jagger recalled, "He had 2 of us practice scales for 2 hours, and then we recorded the vocals in 2 takes. When he sent the finished track to me later, I was kind of disappointed in the production and the mix, but I think he's a really good singer." Probably Mick replaced another legend in that song. Michael Jackson had been recording the song in the studio with Queen singer Freddie Mercury for their joint album from 1981 to 1983. According to Queen's manager Jim Beach, the musicians' friendship spoiled when Michael brought a llama to the studio. He was also frustrated with Mercury's drug use. Their joint compositions were released only in 2014, after the death of both musicians. After the release of Victory, Michael and his brothers appeared on Motown 25, Yesterday, Today, Forever, on the NBC television special. Jackson performed his #1 hit Billie Jean and introduced the world to his soon-to-be-famous moonwalk dance move. Contrary to popular belief, Michael did not invent it. Bill Bailey and Jeffrey Daniel used the dance long before, and it was Daniel who was one of those whom Michael spied on that movement and asked to teach him. I had been practicing the moonwalk for some time, and it dawned on me in our kitchen that I could finally do the moonwalk in public on Motown 25. Now the moonwalk was already out on the street by this time, but I enhanced it a little when I did it. It was born as a breakdance step, a poppin' style of thing that black kids had created dancing on the street corners in the ghetto. So I said, this is my chance to do it. Michael kept it in his head like an ace in the hole. He carefully found the moment and showed it to the public. So he became the popularizer of the moonwalk. He often used it and later directed the dance for the video clip for another hit of the album Beat It. By the way, Jackson is the only musician in the American Dancers Hall of Fame. His unique choreographic style is still famous. "I always knew how to dance," he said more than once. The choreography was already present in Jackson's earliest performances as part of the Jackson 5. He recalled when he was a child, alone behind the scenes, he watched all of the headliners and learned from them as much as possible. He looked at their feet, what they were doing with their hands, how they were holding the microphone, trying to understand why. The boy did not miss a single step, not a single moment, turn, twist, emotion, and half movement. That was his education and his recreation. Billie Jean earned him his first Emmy Award nomination. The performance was compared to Elvis Presley and the Beatles' performances on The Ed Sullivan Show. If you are interested in knowing the details of the life of the King of Rock and Roll, click on the link in the upper right corner of the screen. And if you want to know more about the life of Mick Jagger and Sir Paul McCartney, be sure to write about it in the comments. We read everything carefully and listen to your advice. The success turned Jackson into a dominant force in global pop culture and cemented his status as the king of pop. Jackson had the highest royalty rate in the music industry at the time. Around $2 for each album sold, equivalent to $5 in 2022, was making record profits. And then there were dolls created based on Michael's appearance, $12 each. A documentary about the video, The Making of Michael Jackson's Thriller, won the Grammy Award for Best Music Video in the same year. The New York Times wrote, "In the world of pop music, there is Michael Jackson and there is everyone else." Time described Jackson's influence at that point as star of records, radio, rock video, a one-man rescue team for the music business, a songwriter who sets the beat for a decade, a dancer with the fanciest feet on the street, a singer who cuts across all boundaries of taste and style and color too. On May 14, 1984, President Ronald Reagan presented Jackson with an award for his charity that supports drug and alcohol abusers. In recognition of his support for the Ad Council's and the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration's drunk driving prevention campaign, Michael allowed using Beat It in their social ads. Jackson did not miss the opportunity to act in films and commercials. In November of 1983, he and his brothers partnered with PepsiCo in a $5 million advertising deal that marked a record celebrity endorsement. It would be approximately $13.5 million today. The band needed that money to cover the cost of a massive tour. Pepsi's first campaign in the US from 1983 to 1984 focused on the new generation and included tour sponsorships, public relations events, and more. Jackson helped create the ad and suggested that his song Billie Jean be used as the jingle with a slight change in the lyrics.
You're loving what I do. I put a Pepsi in the motion, but that choice is up to you. Hey, you're the Pepsi generation.
Michael and other members of the Jacksons filmed a Pepsi commercial on January 27, 1984. Michael, who didn't drink Pepsi, was supposed to star in 2 commercials. He made sure that his face appeared on them as little as possible so as to not draw attention to himself. There was an embarrassment on the set of one of the videos. During a concert invitation in front of fans, pyrotechnics accidentally set Michael's hair on fire, causing second-degree burns to his scalp. Jackson underwent treatment to hide his scars and also had another rhinoplasty. Pepsi settled the incident out of court, and Michael donated $1.5 million of his compensation to Brotman Medical Center. He later signed a new $10 million contract with Pepsi. He also worked with LA Gear, Suzuki, and Sony. Michael was altruistic and often donated large sums to charity from that moment. So, for example, during the same tour, the Jacksons came up with an ugly scheme to receive additional income from ticket sales. It meant assuming a money transfer of $120 instead of $30 to participate in the lottery with a possibility to get 4 tickets. The return of funds to the losers would take 6 to 8 weeks, and the brothers expected to earn $10 to $12 million from the accrued interest. Only Michael opposed such an idea. He realized that the $30 ticket price was already higher than most touring performers and only made worse by buying 4 tickets. That made tickets unfavorable for many of Michael's African American fans who were not financially secure. However, at the end of June, forms for ordering tickets for the first show in Kansas City appeared in newspapers. Fans lined up in stores before they even opened. Then, Michael held a press conference and announced changes in the organization of the tour. A lot of people are having trouble getting tickets. The other day, I got a letter from a fan in Texas named LaDonna Jones. She'd been saving her money from odd jobs to buy a ticket, but with the Turn Tour system, she had to buy 4 tickets and she couldn't afford that. So we asked our promoter to work out a new way of distributing tickets, a way that no longer requires a money order. Michael asked the promoter to stop selling tickets by mail as soon as possible so that no one had paid money until they got a ticket. Most importantly, he decided to donate all of the money earned from the band's performance to charity. The tour sold a record number of tickets despite the high price. The singer donated approximately $3 to $5 million. By the way, Michael was disappointed that his idol James Brown turned down his invitation to join the band on stage at Madison Square Garden in New York City due to Brown's ongoing outrage over the ticket lottery. Even before the tour was half completed, the brothers traveled to shows in different cars, traveled on different planes, stayed on different floors of their hotels, and refused to talk to each other on the way to shows. From that point, Michael was often represented by 2 lawyers, another for Jermaine and another for Jackie, Tito, and Marlon. It was the worst experience Michael ever had with his brothers. Some were jealous, there was denial, the whole gamut of human emotions. During the final show of the Victory Tour at Dodger Stadium in Los Angeles, Jackson announced his split from the Jacksons. The New York Times was absolutely right when they wrote, "In the world of pop music, there is Michael Jackson and there is everyone else." Michael's charitable work continued when he released We Are the World the following year, co-written with Lionel Richie. The single raised funds for the poor people of the US and Africa. Stars such as Lionel Richie, Ray Charles, Bob Dylan, Willie Nelson, Bruce Springsteen, and Tina Turner also participated in the project. The track earned $63 million, equivalent to $158.7 million in 2021, and became one of the best-selling singles of all time, selling 20 million copies. In addition, the song won 4 Grammy Awards in 1985.
We are the ones who make a brighter day, so let's start giving.
Jackson donated $455,000 to the United Negro College Fund from 1985 to 1990. All profits from his single Man in the Mirror went to charity. By that point, Michael's health continued to deteriorate. In his youth, Jackson's skin was medium brown, but from the mid-1980s, it gradually turned pale. The change received a lot of media coverage, including rumors that he bleached his skin. His dermatologist, Arnold Klein, said that in 1983, Jackson came to him for acne treatment. The doctor recognized lupus the first time they met. He did a biopsy and diagnosed Michael with lupus erythematosus. At the same time, he observed vitiligo in Jackson. It is a disease characterized by areas of the skin losing their pigment and sensitivity to sunlight. Once in an interview, Michael said that it began after the release of Thriller. By that time, he didn't know what it was. Initially, Jackson tried to cover his vitiligo patches with black makeup because he thought his appearance would harm his career. Then he wanted to hide uneven color spots. The creams further lightened his skin, and he could appear very pale with makeup. Michael said that he didn't intentionally whiten his skin and couldn't control the vitiligo. The media claimed that Jackson intentionally wanted lighter skin and reduced his nose and lips, apparently trying to look euphoric. The last straw of changing the color of Michael's skin was the release of Black or White. It seemed to the public that the performer was teasing his fans. It all was because of his skin color in the video. In an interview with Oprah Winfrey, Michael denied those claims, saying, "There is no such thing as skin whitening. I've never seen it. I have a skin disorder that destroys the pigmentation of the skin. It's something that I cannot help, okay? But when people make up stories that I don't want to be who I am, it hurts me." In his 1988 autobiography and 1993 interview, Michael claimed to have had 2 rhinoplasty operations and a cleft chin operation, but nothing more. He mentioned that he lost weight in the early 1980s due to a diet to achieve a lean dancer's figure. It was reported that Michael often felt dizzy. It was also rumored that he suffered from anorexia nervosa. Periods of weight loss became a recurring problem later in his life. In 1986, tabloids reported that Jackson slept in a hypodermic oxygen chamber to slow aging and depicted him lying in a glass box. The claim was false, and the tabloids reported that he spread the story himself. They also reported that Jackson injected himself with female hormones to keep his voice high and facial hair thin. What do you think could be true? Over time, and after Jackson's death, FDA-approved creams for the treatment of vitiligo were found in his home. Creams remove and lighten the remaining pigment. On the TV show, Klein said that vitiligo became too severe. It was difficult to cover it with makeup, and his skin had to be depigmented with creams. The condition remained stable, but Jackson had to repeat the treatment from time to time. It was difficult to darken depigmented skin. The depigmentation caused permanent and extreme sensitivity to the sun, which put patients at risk of contracting melanoma and was advised to undergo annual cancer screening. Therefore, Jackson often hid his skin with long sleeves and trousers and appeared in the sun under an umbrella. In the mid-80s, Michael Jackson kept Bubbles, a chimpanzee, as a pet. He bought it from a Texas research center and traveled with it. Bubbles became a media star as well. Michael took the chimpanzee on tour of Japan, and the media portrayed him as an aspiring Disney cartoon character who befriended the animals.
As an official guest of the city, in the first time for the history of the city of Wisconsin.
Bubbles lived at the Jackson family home in Encino, Los Angeles, but later moved to Jackson's Neverland Ranch home in 1988. It slept in a crib in Jackson's bedroom, used Jackson's bathroom, and ate Jackson's candy at the Neverland movie theater. By 2003, Bubbles had grown into a large and aggressive adult chimpanzee, unsuitable as a pet like many captive chimpanzees, and was sent to an animal trainer in California. At the same time, Jackson was working with George Lucas and Francis Ford Coppola on the $30 million 17-minute 3D film Captain EO. Lucas was the screenwriter and Coppola was the director. It was completed in 1986 and aired with additional effects of lasers, smoke, and more at Disneyland and Epcot, and later at Tokyo Disneyland and Euro Disneyland until the late 90s. Disney wanted to change Michael's voice because they thought that his voice was too high, and they were afraid that people wouldn't take him seriously. The singer was unaware of the decision until he found out that Lucas had vetoed it. In 1987, Jackson separated and left the Jehovah's Witnesses. Perhaps it was because some witnesses opposed the Thriller video. Nevertheless, for a long time, Michael did not release new album material. Finally, after 5 years of waiting, Michael released a new album, Bad. Many expected him to repeat the great success of the previous one, and they were right. The release was a follow-up to Thriller and reached the top of the charts with a record 5 #1 hits: I Just Can't Stop Loving You, Bad, The Way You Make Me Feel, Man in the Mirror, and Dirty Diana. The album's title track was supported by a video directed by Martin Scorsese. Michael's other popular track, Smooth Criminal, took only 7th place but was loved by fans worldwide. Bad was a hit and was highly acclaimed by critics. The album won the 1988 Grammy Award for Best Engineered Recording, non-classical, and the 1990 Grammy Award for Best Music Video, short form for Leave Me Alone. Michael received the Award of Achievement at the American Music Awards, thanks to a record number of #1 singles and the status of the first album to top the charts in 25 countries. Bad became the best-selling album worldwide in 1987 and 1988. The Bad World Tour lasted almost a year and a half, had 14 sold-outs in Japan, and set a new attendance record of 570,000 people. It was almost 3 times the previous result, and having collected 504,000 listeners for 7 sold-out shows at Wembley Stadium set a new Guinness World Record. In an interview with the album, Michael reasoned, "My philosophy, if you want to make the world a better place, take a look at yourself and then make a change. People don't look at themselves honestly. They don't look at themselves and point the finger. It's always the other guy's fault or somebody else should change themselves. Look at yourself. Make better of yourself." He has come a long way, gone through many internal and external changes, and put that idea into the release. In the same interview, Michael was asked if he was happy when he looked in the mirror. He said that he's never totally satisfied. He always wished the world could be a better place. Hopefully, that's what he does with his music to bring happiness to people and to bring joy. He needs some peace in their lives. Michael released his autobiography, Moonwalk, also in 1988. The book sold over 200,000 copies and reached the top of the New York Times bestseller list. Michael wrote about his childhood, the Jackson 5, and his father's abuse. He explained his change in appearance to 3 plastic surgeries, puberty, weight loss, a strict vegetarian diet, a change in hairstyle, and even stage lighting. While visiting Paris during the tour, Michael was awarded the Vermeil Medal of the City of Paris by the Mayor of Paris, Jacques Chirac. Already in October, he released the film Moonwalker, which featured live footage and short films featuring Jackson and Joe Pesci. It became the best-selling videotape in the US. It has been certified 8 times platinum in the US by the RIAA.
Los Angeles, I got San Francisco, I got heroin, I got speed.
Michael Jackson bought 2,700 acres or 11 kilometers squared of land near Santa Ynez, California to build a new home in March of 1988. The land was covered with plane trees and live oaks. It also was near the coast with cool breezes and moist soil. Vineyards surrounded the territory. The property was on the edge of the Los Padres National Forest. He invested $17 million in it, which is about $40 million today, and built a Ferris wheel, a carousel, a lake with a waterfall, a railway, a cinema for 50 spectators, basketball and tennis courts, and a zoo with elephants, giraffes, chimpanzees, crocodiles, snakes, and a bear on its territory. Guests often visited the ranch, among whom were many children, including quite famous.
Ready? No! I'm crazy for doing this. Okay, no, you gotta stretch it back.
He brought 46 children worldwide to the World Congress of Children in 1995. The property was originally called Sycamore Valley Ranch. Jackson renamed it Neverland, a magical land where children never grow up from the book Peter Pan. During his stay at the ranch, Michael literally cultivated the carnival atmosphere, having fun with the children. Probably he tried to catch up on the fun he missed in childhood. When the architect of the future Neverland, Tony Euriquides, got a call from Jackson, he didn't believe it at first and hung up. When Michael told him about his construction plans, Euriquides was shocked. He recalled, "He wasn't the demanding type, but more of a little kid that wanted things immediately. He had crews working all hours of the day, and you could tell Michael was excited. He put pressure on me, but it was a different kind of pressure, a fun pressure. Michael gave me a mental visual of what he wanted, and I had the freedom to create." Meanwhile, performing You Were There at Sammy Davis Jr.'s 60th birthday celebration won Jackson a second Emmy nomination. Michael became the best-selling artist of the 1980s. They called him the King of Pop. The nickname literally stuck to him. When Elizabeth Taylor presented him with the Soul Train Heritage Award in 1989, she called him the true King of Pop, Rock, and Soul. President George H.W. Bush designated him the White House's Artist of the Decade. In March of 1991, Jackson extended his contract with Sony and released his 8th album, Dangerous, co-produced with Teddy Riley. It was symbolic that it became 8 times platinum in the States. The following year, it became the best-selling album of the year worldwide. Of course, it did not have such a phenomenal success as the previous one, but a couple of songs were at the top of the world charts, and Black or White even stayed in first place for 7 weeks. By the way, the video for the song, directed by Landis, included an appearance of kid star Macaulay Culkin. Michael's actions in the last minutes of the video caused some controversy, appearing to viewers as sexual gestures. That surprised many, but it was only the premise of a growing scandal. 1992 was productive not in the musical but the socially significant field. Michael opened Heal the World Foundation. His charity brought underprivileged children to ranches to enjoy theme park rides and sent millions of dollars worldwide to help children threatened by war, poverty, and disease. In July, Michael published his second book, Dancing the Dream, a collection of poetry. After the death of HIV and AIDS spokesperson and friend Ryan White, Michael pleaded with the administration of Bill Clinton's inaugural gala to allocate more money to charity and HIV and AIDS research. Then the musician went to Africa. He had previously visited in '74 with the Jackson 5. During the first stop in Gabon, he greeted over 100,000 people. Some of them carried signs that read, "Welcome home, Michael." He received the Officer of the National Order of Merit from President Omar Bongo, and during a trip to the Ivory Coast, Jackson was crowned King Sani by a tribal chief. Michael thanked the senior officials in French and English, signed the documents confirming his kingship, presided over the ceremonial dances, and sat on the golden throne. In an interview, he described the trip. "For me, it's like the dawn of civilization. It's the first place where society existed. It's seen a lot of love. I guess there is that connection because it is the root of all rhythm, everything. It's home." Inspired by the trip, he suggested that music started with nature. Music is nature. Birds make music. Oceans make music. Wind makes music. Any natural sound is music, and that's where it started. Michael said, "We're just making a replica of nature, which is the sounds we hear outside." In the meantime, Jackson's music was still popular, and he performed at several huge events the following year, including the Super Bowl 27 halftime show. The halftime performance attracted more viewers than the game itself. The following January, Michael Jackson received 3 American Music Awards: Favorite Pop Rock Album, Favorite Soul R&B Single, and was the first to win the International Artist Award of Excellence. In February, he won the Living Legend Award at the 35th Annual Grammy Awards and was with Brooke Shields on the award show. Michael's relationships were complicated. He dated Oscar winner Tatum O'Neal. They became friends when he was 12 and she was 17. But by 1982, their relationship was cooled. Then, Michael met Brooke Shields and eventually even considered getting married. But Shields was never thrilled about the prospect. She once said to Michael, "You have me for the rest of your life. You don't need to marry me." He also had a short relationship with Madonna. According to her, she and Michael did not go beyond 3 dates and a kiss with the tongue. According to rumors, he briefly dated Shana Mangatal and Whitney Houston, whom he wanted to marry quickly. In August of 1993, Michael's career took a turn and changed probably forever. 13-year-old boy Jordan Chandler and his father Evan Chandler accused the singer of child sexual abuse. Those very first premises found their dastardly continuation. Jordan claimed that he and Michael Jackson kissed, masturbated, and had oral sex. The boy's mother initially told police that she did not believe that Jackson had molested him, but after a few days, her position changed. Even Michael's older sister LaToya accused him of pedophilia, although she later admitted that her ex-husband forced her to say it. A few days later, police searched Michael's home and found 2 legal, large-format art books in which the boys played, ran, and swam in varying degrees of undress. Michael denied knowing about the contents of the books. He claimed that since they were found in the house, someone must have sent them to him, and he did not open them. Then, Jordan Chandler gave the police a description of Jackson's genitals. There was a humiliating strip search of the star, but the jury concluded the description did not match. In January, Michael had settled out of court with the Chandlers for $23 million. By the way, the criminal case was never initiated due to the lack of evidence other than Jordan's testimony.
There have been many disgusting statements made recently concerning allegations of improper conduct on my part. These statements about me are totally false. As I have maintained from the very beginning, I am hoping for a speedy end to this horrifying experience to which I have been subjected.
Michael had become dependent on painkillers, which he took during reconstructive surgeries on his scalp after an injury. He started again taking pills to cope with the stress of the sexual assault allegations that had piled up. In the fall of 1993, he canceled the remainder of the Dangerous tour due to health problems, stress, and dependence on painkillers. By the end of the year, Michael was already tired of a failed relationship and really wanted to start a family. Therefore, the singer proposed to Lisa Marie Presley, daughter of Elvis Presley, by phone. Michael met Lisa when he was 16 and she was 6. They grew up, and after a private dinner in Los Angeles in 1992, their relationship began. They talked on the phone every day for a year. The couple married on May 26, 1994 in La Vega, Dominican Republic. It was Michael's first marriage, but unfortunately, it did not last long. The marriage was not just a secret for many weeks, but some facts about their union were pretty amazing. For example, they slept in separate bedrooms despite their on-screen chemistry. The 1994 MTV Video Music Awards are remembered for their marriage. They didn't hesitate to hold hands and kiss in front of 250 million people watching on TV. The kiss, seen worldwide, led Lisa Marie to believe that Michael used her to make their kiss a reason for talk for decades. Lisa Marie did not agree to have children with him because he was emotionally immature. They divorced a year and a half later due to irreconcilable differences.
Looking into the future, and I was thinking, I don't ever want to get into a custody battle with him. I don't want to do this. I don't want to go head-to-head with him. So I need to make sure that everything around is good. I had children. I knew bringing children into certain circumstances, you have to make sure everything's safe and secured and okay. And I wanted to make sure that he and I were really, really united because we were going to be up against so much.
In an interview with Oprah, Presley revealed that she and Jackson periodically tried to reconcile in the 4 years following their divorce, but it was difficult. The tabloids did not stop because of the sex scandal and wrote that the couple's relationship was not real. During that time, Michael was supposed to write the music for the Sega Genesis video game Sonic the Hedgehog 3, but left the project when allegations of violence surfaced and were uncredited. He was a fan of Sonic and collaborated with Sega in 1990 on the arcade game Moonwalker. Therefore, for the first time, he felt the unpleasant consequences of the culture of cancellation, which had not yet become a common phenomenon at that time. The musical career was gradually waning, but the performer still had something to say to society. In 1995, Michael released the double album History, Past, Present, and Future Book 1. In it, the first disc, History Begins, was a top hits album, and exclusively new compositions and a couple of covers were in the second, History Continues. The album became the best-selling multi-disc release of all time. It was also nominated for a Grammy Award in the Album of the Year category. The testimony of a musician whose self-pity now equals his talent. The album spawned two hits, You Are Not Alone, which debuted immediately at first place in the charts, thereby hitting the Guinness Book of World Records. And his duet with younger sister Janet, Scream, became a protest against the media's harsh treatment of Jackson during the allegations. The music video for Scream, In the Spaceship, which cost a record $7 million to produce, won another Grammy for Michael Jackson for superb effects. Another record from the album, They Don't Care About Us, drew sharp criticism for using anti-Semitic statements in the lyrics. So in the original song were the words, "Jew me, sue me, everybody do me, kick me, kike me, don't you black or white me." Shortly after being criticized by the Anti-Defamation League and others, Michael rewrote them and posted the song with the lines changed. At the end of the year, Michael was rehearsing a performance on television and suddenly lost consciousness. Probably it was caused by a panic attack due to stress. The musician was taken to the hospital. Lisa Marie came to visit him from time to time, but even then there was discord between them, which resulted in a quick divorce. Another memorable track on the album was Earth Song. It was remembered because of one incident. Before it, the composition topped the UK singles chart on Christmas Eve. Michael was supposed to appear and perform the song at the Brit Awards in 1996. His performance was disrupted by Pulp singer Jarvis Cocker. It was his protest against Jackson's Christ-like persona. Michael called that foray into the scene disgusting and cowardly. The artist held a tour supporting the album, visiting 35 countries and 58 cities and giving 82 concerts. It was his most attended tour. While visiting Australian Sydney, the performer married Debbie Rowe at the Sheraton on the Park Hotel. Initially, the couple met when the girl worked as an assistant to his dermatologist. A friendship began, and she proposed to Michael that she be the mother of his children after Lisa Marie Presley refused to have children with him. When Michael divorced Lisa, Debbie Rowe was 6 months pregnant with his child, and they soon got married. Michael Joseph Jackson Jr. was born on February 13, 1997, and a year later the couple had their second child. Girl Paris Michael Catherine Jackson was born on April 3, 1998. Michael Joseph Jackson Jr. later became known as the Prince. A team of 6 nannies and 6 nurses took care of the boy for the first few months. Debbie, who called herself a private person and rarely gave interviews, was stunned by the publicity and popularity she received after her marriage to Jackson. Unhappy with the arrangement, Rowe filed for divorce on October 8, 1999, and gave Michael all custody of the children. Later, she would return those rights. In 1997, Michael released Blood on the Dance Floor, History in the Mix, which contained only 5 new songs and was a remix album of singles from History. At that time, Michael Jackson was still a significant figure in the pop music world, but the decline was already being felt. While the best songs that are written write themselves, you don't ask for them, they just drop onto your lap. Then, there are those songs that you kind of incubate. You know, you plant the idea, let the subconscious take its course, and within time you hope something comes. Most of the time, it does. Michael worked on his 10th solo album, Invincible, which cost $30 million to record, from the October of that year to September of 2001. He did not stop participating in charitable movements and projects. In June of 1999, Jackson joined Luciano Pavarotti at the War Child charity concert in Modena, Italy. The show raised $1 million for Kosovo war refugees and additional funds for children in Guatemala. Later that month, Jackson organized the Michael Jackson and Friends benefit concert series in Germany and Korea. The proceeds went to the Nelson Mandela Children's Fund, the Red Cross, and UNESCO. A year later, Guinness World Records honored Michael for helping 39 organizations, more than any other artist. After the September 11, 2001 attacks, Jackson helped organize the United We Stand, What More Can I Give benefit concert at RFK Stadium in Washington, D.C. on October 21st of that year. In the finale, Jackson performed the track of the same name. What More Can I Give was specially written by Michael for charity with contributions from Mariah Carey, Nick Carter, Beyoncé, NSYNC, Celine Dion, Usher, and many more. The release of Invincible was preceded by a dispute between Michael and his label Sony Music Entertainment. The singer expected that the licenses for the master recordings of his albums would return to him in the early 2000s, after which he would be able to promote the material as he pleased and keep the profits. But the clauses of the contract suggested a return date some years later. Jackson sought early termination of the contract. As a result, Invincible was released on October 30th, 2001. It was the first full-length album by Michael Jackson in 6 years, and the last album of original material released by the artist during his lifetime. It debuted at number 1 in 13 countries and sold 8 million copies worldwide, going double platinum in the US. Soon, in January, Michael won his 22nd American Music Award for Artist of the Century. Later, an anonymous surrogate mother gave birth to his third child, Prince Michael Jackson II, nicknamed Blanket. In the same year, for some reason, Michael dangled the child by throwing it over the balcony railing in a Berlin hotel room. His room was on the 4th floor. The act drew heavy criticism in the media. Michael apologized, calling the incident a terrible mistake, and explained, "We were waiting for thousands of fans down below, and they were chanting they wanted to see my child, so I was kind enough to let them see. I was doing something out of innocence." In April of 2002, Michael gave one of his last live concerts. He performed at the Apollo Theater with a benefit concert for the Democratic National Committee and former President Bill Clinton. The $2.5 million raised during Michael Jackson Live at the Apollo went towards encouraging the citizens of America to vote. The reputation of the performer was falling, and constant news breaks harmed it. In July, Michael called Sony Music chairman Tommy Mottola a racist and very, very, very devilish, and someone who exploits black artists for his own gain at Al Sharpton's National Action Network in Harlem. Sharpton launched an investigation into whether Mottola exploited black artists. Jackson charged that Mottola had called his colleague Irv Gotti a, quote, fat nigger, end quote. In response, Sony called the statements ridiculous, vicious, and hurtful, and defended Mottola as the man who supported Michael's career for many years. As a result, Sony refused to renew the contract with the performer. Michael once said in an interview, "Any painter or sculptor, they paint. They do their best work within their 60s and their 70s. But in the music business, some of these great artists have become stumped because they self-abuse themselves and their long, young age so early with all these crazy things they drink and pills they take. That's just not good." As sad as it was to realize, Michael Jackson was becoming more and more associated with that statement. If before the artist's career only slowed down, now it collapsed noticeably, and it was almost impossible to avoid that. Since May of that year, Michael Jackson has been filmed for the documentary Living with Michael Jackson. British journalist Martin Bashir and his documentary team spent several months with the singer and filmed his life. The film was released on television in February of 2003 and returned Michael to the violent sex scandal. Bashir persuaded him to discuss his relationship with the children. Jackson said that the children continued to sleep at his ranch even after the 1993 allegations. He also said that he sometimes slept with the children in his bed. The film showed Michael holding hands and discussing sleeping conditions with a 12-year-old boy. He replied that he did not see anything wrong with arranging overnight stays with minors. "Why can't you share your bed? That's the most loving thing to do, to share your bed with someone." Michael insisted that the sleepovers were not sexual and that his words were misunderstood. But the media exploded with accusations and controversy. In December, Santa Barbara authorities charged Jackson with 7 paragraphs of child molestation and 2 paragraphs of drugging minor Gavin Arvizo with alcoholic beverages. He was charged with indecent conduct with a minor, attempted indecent conduct, the use of alcohol to facilitate molestation, conspiracy to kidnap a child, false imprisonment, and extortion. Could you believe that? Of course, Jackson denied the allegations and pleaded not guilty. The People v. Jackson trial began on January 31, 2005 in Santa Maria, California. While the hearing lasted, Michael was very stressed, which eventually affected his health. The singer lost even more weight. By the end of the trial, he became a recluse in May. If convicted, he could face up to 20 years in prison. As a result, the 2005 trial became a media circus with fans, detractors, and film crews surrounding the courthouse. More than 130 people testified, including Macaulay Culkin. The actor told the court that he was friends with Jackson as a teenager and never had any problems during his stay at Neverland Ranch. Jackson's accuser appeared in court on videotape and described how he was given wine and molested. However, the jury noticed inconsistencies in his testimony, as well as in the testimony of his mother. As a result, Michael Jackson was found not guilty of all charges. Shortly after that, he moved to Bahrain as a personal guest of Sheikh Abdullah.
Defendant not guilty of conspiracy as charged in count 1 of the indictment, dated June 13, 2005, foreperson number 80.
The trial ruined his reputation and his finances fell into despair. Bahrain's prince helped the pop star pay his legal and utility bills and invited him to his country. In Bahrain, the prince took over the singer's expenses and built a recording studio for him. In return, Michael allegedly promised to collaborate with the Al Khalifa label on his new album, write an autobiography, and put on a play. However, the release was never completed. Jackson soon faced a $7 million lawsuit from his friend for not keeping his promises. He was forced to leave Bahrain. Moreover, in 2006, Michael faced financial difficulties. He was urged by financial managers to get rid of part of his stake in the ATV catalog to avoid a loan bankruptcy. The main house at the Neverland Ranch was closed to save money, and the ranch itself was pledged as bail for the loan. Approximately 30 Jackson employees did not receive their salaries on time, and wage errors amounted to $306,000. Jackson must pay a $100,000 fine. In November of 2006, Jackson invited the Access Hollywood camera crew into the studio in Westmeath, and MSNBC reported that Michael was working on a new album with will.i.am producing. On November 15th, Michael performed We Are the World at the World Music Awards in London and accepted the Diamond Award for selling over 100 million records. That turned out to be Michael's last public appearance. In December, he returned to the States and attended the funeral of his biggest inspiration and idol, James Brown, in Augusta, Georgia. By the fall of 2007, Michael's new album was still in development. And from the new material, Jackson and Sony released Thriller 25 for the 25th anniversary of the album in 2008 with 2 remixes as singles, The Girl Is Mine 2008 and Wanna Be Startin' Somethin' 2008. Things got worse and worse. Fortress Investments threatened the artist with foreclosure of the Neverland Ranch, which was bail for loans. As a result, Michael transferred ownership of the Neverland Ranch to the Sycamore Valley Ranch Company, LLC, and made $35 million. He then arranged for his memorabilia collection of over 1,000 items to be sold through Julian's auction house. In March of 2009, amid financial and health rumors, Michael announced a series of This Is It comeback concerts at the O2 Arena. The shows would be his first concerts since the 1997 History World Tour. Jackson planned to perform his last concerts and retire after the show. The original plan was to do 10 gigs in London and then maybe more gigs in Paris, New York, and Mumbai. The organizers expected to receive about $50 million, but Michael's fan base turned out to be surprisingly strong. Michael canceled the auction on the eve of the first public exhibition of the collection of items. He had already made about $200 to $300 million from pre-sales of a series of 10 concerts that were supposed to take place only in London. Despite all the allegations and stories of bizarre behavior, Jackson remained a figure of great interest. All tickets for the next concerts were sold only in the first 4 hours. But unfortunately, none of them were destined to take place. After moving to Los Angeles, Jackson rehearsed diligently, trying to perfect the concert program. But 3 weeks before the first This Is It show, on June 25, 2009, Michael Jackson died of a cardiac arrest caused by a propofol and benzodiazepine overdose. Conrad Murray, his personal physician, had given Jackson various medications to help him sleep at his rented mansion in Holmby Hills. They tried to save him on the way to Ronald Reagan UCLA Medical Center, and for more than an hour after arrival there, but were unsuccessful. The musician died at the age of 50 from an overdose of propofol.
Of our viewers, both the Los Angeles Times and CBS News are both now reporting that Michael Jackson has died.
News of his death quickly spread across the web, causing many websites to slow down and crash due to the influx of users. Google, AOL Instant Messenger, Twitter, and Wikipedia were barely loading. Moreover, web traffic rose by between 11% and 20%. MTV and BET aired marathons of Jackson's music videos and special shows. Jackson's memorial was held on July 7th at the Staples Center in Los Angeles, preceded by a private family service at Forest Lawn Memorial Park's Hall of Liberty. Mariah Carey, Stevie Wonder, Lionel Richie, Jennifer Hudson, and Shaheen Jafarghali performed at the memorial, and Smokey Robinson and Queen Latifah gave eulogies. Al Sharpton received a standing ovation with cheers when he told Jackson's children, "Wasn't nothing strange about your daddy. It was strange what your daddy had to deal with, but he dealt with it anyway." Jackson's 11-year-old daughter, Paris Catherine, speaking publicly for the first time, wept as she addressed the crowd. Jackson's body was entombed on September 3, 2009 at Forest Lawn Memorial Park in Glendale, California. Over time, discussions about the death of the King of Pop raised more and more questions about its cause. There were a lot of questions to the personal doctor, Dr. Conrad Murray. Because of him, Michael took sedatives that helped him sleep at night. Murray told police that he believed Jackson had developed a particular addiction to propofol, which Jackson called his milk. Murray injected him with propofol intravenously in the evenings in doses of 50 milligrams and tried to wean the pop star off the drug. A police investigation revealed that Murray did not have a license to prescribe the most controlled drugs in the state of California. The steps taken to save Jackson were also under scrutiny. Evidence indicated that the standard of safe propofol administration was not met. The recommended equipment for patient monitoring, accurate dosing, and resuscitation were not available. As a result, Jackson's death has been ruled a homicide. On November 7, 2011, Murray was found guilty of manslaughter, receiving a maximum prison sentence of 4 years. By that time, Michael Jackson's posthumous influence on the world and culture continued, and did not even think to decline. After his death, he was described in several biographies. All of Michael's debts were paid off thanks to his earlier investment in the Sony ATV music catalog. It included the publishing rights to songs from industry heavyweights such as the Beatles, the Rolling Stones, and Taylor Swift. In addition, 2 posthumous albums, Michael in 2010 and Escape in 2014, which included previously unreleased tracks, were released. Video game developer Ubisoft released a music video game featuring Jackson for the 2010 holiday season, Michael Jackson: The Experience. In April of 2011, Mohammed Al-Fayed, chairman of the Fulham Football Club, unveiled a statue of Jackson outside the club's Craven Cottage Stadium. In October of 2011, the theater company Cirque du Soleil launched the play Michael Jackson: The Immortal World Tour with a permanent show in Las Vegas. In May of 2013, a larger and more theatrical circus show, Michael Jackson 1, was opened in the refurbished theater for the Mandalay Bay Resort. He was posthumously honored with a 2018 Elizabeth Taylor AIDS Foundation Legacy Award for humanitarian service, with children Paris and Prince Michael accepting on his behalf. Sexual assault allegations against Jackson came up in early 2019 with Leaving Neverland at the Sundance Film Festival and later on HBO. The 4-hour documentary featured the flashbacks of two men who described how the pop star lured them into his orbit when they were just boys, gaining their parents' trust before forcing them into sexual acts in hotel rooms and at his Neverland Ranch. The documentary drew heavy criticism from Jackson's supporters, who pointed out that both men had previously testified that no violence ever took place. Meanwhile, the Jackson estate called the two accusers serial perjurers and filed a $100 million lawsuit against HBO. To be honest, it would be better to never return to this topic again. Michael Jackson set trends, changed the style of generations, and impacted the R&B genre. His protege Usher, the young Justin Bieber, Bruno Mars, The Weeknd, and even Beyoncé were inspired by him. Michael achieved worldwide popularity and financial success thanks to hard work and dedication to what he loved. Unfortunately, he passed away quite early before he could finish everything he had planned. But in the hearts of the fans, he will forever remain the king of pop. If you want to know more about what led to the death of Michael Jackson, click on this icon. You will find out if his death was a murder and could he fake his death? What drugs killed the star? And could his untimely death be prevented? Click on the link and watch. And that is the end of our video. Thanks for watching till the end. Like it if it was interesting. It was Biographer. See you soon.